The music stopped the moment the billionaire's wife pointed her finger at the little black girl. The whole party froze. Lights from the crystal chandeliers shone on her angry face as she shouted, "You don't belong here! Who let her inside?" People gasped. The girl, only 9, stood shaking with a small cupcake in her hand. She had been smiling just seconds ago. Now her eyes filled with tears. And before anyone could speak, the billionaire's son, Brandon, the quiet boy everyone thought was shy, stepped forward. He looked straight at his stepmother, his voice louder than anyone had ever heard. "Don't you ever talk to her like that again," he said. The entire room went silent. The billionaire's wife's jaw dropped. Brandon moved closer to the little girl and placed a hand on her shoulder. But then something happened, something none of them were ready for. The billionaire himself, Mr. Grayson, walked into the center of the room after hearing the shouting. He looked at Brandon, then at the little girl, then at his wife. And his next words shocked everyone so much that 3 people dropped their glasses on the floor. "Explain. Right now." But before she could open her mouth, someone unexpected stepped out from behind the dessert table, holding a torn piece of gold fabric. And that's where the trouble really began. Before we dive deeper into this story, kindly hit the subscribe button and stay with us till the end. Share the city you're watching from in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. Earlier that morning, the sun was bright over the Grayson estate. It was the biggest mansion in Lakeview Hills, surrounded by tall gates, fountains, and a garden that looked like it came from a movie. Today was the day of Brandon's 12th birthday party. Everyone in town talked about it because the Graysons were one of the richest families in the state. But not everyone felt excited. A little black girl named Ariana sat at the bus stop near her aunt's house, swinging her legs quietly. She held a small drawing book on her lap. Her aunt, Miss Tessa, cleaned houses for work, and sometimes she took Ariana with her. Today was one of those days. Miss Tessa came out of the house holding her bag. "Ready, sweetheart?" she asked. Ariana nodded. She was used to helping her aunt. She didn't mind. She liked seeing different houses, and she always packed her drawing book, because she loved sketching things she couldn't afford to have. When they arrived at the mansion, workers rushed around setting up decorations, balloons shaped like spaceships, tables full of candy, a huge ice sculpture of a dragon. Ariana's eyes widened. It looked magical. "You sit over there and draw," Miss Tessa said gently. "I'll finish polishing the dining room before people start coming." Ariana found a quiet corner near the garden. For the first time in a long time, she felt happy. She opened her book and leaned forward, sketching the shiny fountain with careful strokes. That's when a shadow fell over her drawing. She looked up and saw Brandon, the birthday boy. He wore sneakers with flashing lights and a blue t-shirt. His hands were in his pockets and he looked nervous. "Hi," he said. Ariana blinked. Kids from big houses didn't talk to her. "Hi," she whispered back. "Is that the fountain?" Brandon asked, pointing to her sketch. She nodded shyly. "It's really good," he said. "Better than mine." Her eyes widened again. "You draw." "A little." He shrugged. Then he sat beside her like they had been friends forever. "Why are you here?" "My aunt works for your family," she answered softly. "I help her sometimes." Brandon nodded, but he didn't look away from the drawing. "Do you want to see the party setup? I can show you before everyone arrives." Ariana hesitated, but his smile was gentle, so she followed him. He took her around the hall, showing her the decorations and gifts. They talked, laughed a little, and Brandon found himself wishing he had met her earlier. She wasn't like the kids who bragged about money or fancy vacations. She was calm, kind. She listened. But as they walked back, the sound of heels clicking on marble echoed behind them. It was Mrs. Grayson, the billionaire's wife. Tall, perfect hair, a dress that sparkled even in the shade. Her eyes narrowed the moment she saw Ariana. "Who is this?" she demanded. Brandon stepped forward quickly. "She's my friend." Mrs. Grayson's forehead tightened. "Your friend? She shouldn't be wandering around the house. Where is her mother?" "My aunt is working here," Ariana whispered. Mrs. Grayson crossed her arms. "Then stay with her. This is not a playground." Brandon frowned. "She's not doing anything wrong." "I wasn't asking you," Mrs. Grayson snapped. Ariana stepped back, gripping her drawing book tightly. Something about this woman felt cold, like she didn't see her as a child at all. Miss Tessa rushed over the moment she noticed the tension. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. She was just sitting quietly. I'll take her with me." Mrs. Grayson didn't smile. She only gave Ariana one last sharp look before walking away. As soon as she left, Brandon exhaled loudly. "She's always like that," he muttered. "Don't worry." Ariana nodded but said nothing. Her heart felt heavy, even though she didn't understand why someone would dislike her so quickly. Hours passed. As the party began, Ariana helped her aunt collect plates and refill napkins. Brandon kept glancing at her from across the room, trying to cheer her up with small waves or funny faces. And slowly she felt a little better. The music played. Kids danced. Laughter filled the mansion. Until the moment Ariana picked up a small cupcake from the dessert table, because one of the chefs told her she could have one as a thank you. She turned smiling. And she bumped right into Mrs. Grayson. The woman's eyes locked onto the cupcake, then onto Ariana's hands, then onto her face. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed loud enough for people to look. Ariana froze. Her smile vanished. Mrs. Grayson's voice grew sharper, slicing through the music. "You don't belong here. Who let her inside?" The entire room fell quiet. People stared. Ariana's hand shook. The cupcake nearly fell. And just when she thought she would burst into tears, Brandon stepped in front of her. His voice thundered. "Don't you ever talk to her like that again." Gasps filled the room like a wave. Mrs. Grayson's eyes burned with anger. And then, Mr. Grayson walked in. His face was unreadable. "Explain," he said. "Right now." But before Mrs. Grayson could answer, someone stepped forward from behind the dessert table, holding a torn piece of gold fabric. Everyone turned. Ariana's heartbeat thundered in her ears, because that person whispered words that changed the entire room. The room went silent as the woman stepped out from behind the dessert table. Her name was Mrs. Lee, one of the caterers. Her hands shook as she lifted the torn gold fabric for everyone to see. The lights from the ceiling shimmered on it. I found this near the gift table," she said, her voice trembling. "It was caught on the edge of the gift box that went missing." The crowd gasped. A missing gift? No one had heard about that yet. Mrs. Grayson's face tightened. "Why are you showing that to me?" she snapped. Mrs. Lee swallowed. "Because this fabric looks exactly like the dress you're wearing." Everyone turned to Mrs. Grayson. The exact same gold shimmer. The same fabric. The same pattern. Ariana stared, confused. What did a torn fabric have to do with her? Why was everyone looking now, not at her, but at the billionaire's wife? Mrs. Grayson stepped back slightly. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. "My dress is fine. I didn't take anything." Mr. Grayson stepped closer with a slow, cold stare. "A missing gift? And no one told me." Before anyone could respond, another voice spoke from the back of the room. It was the most expensive gift of the party. Everyone turned again. It was Mr. Blake, Mr. Grayson's business partner. He held a clipboard with the guest list. His voice was heavy. "The diamond bracelet I bought for Brandon. It's gone." Gasps spread through the hall like a wave. Mrs. Grayson's eyes widened for a split second. Then she forced a smile. "This is absurd," she said sharply. "You're all acting like I stole it." Mr. Blake pointed at the torn gold fabric. "Then how do you explain that?" The tension grew so thick it felt like the air had stopped moving. Ariana clutched her drawing book against her chest. She wanted to disappear. All she had done was pick up a cupcake. Brandon stepped closer to her as if to protect her from the stares. Mr. Grayson looked at his wife again. "Were you near the gift table?" "I was checking decorations," she replied too quickly. Mr. Grayson didn't respond, but the look on his face said he didn't believe her. Then his eyes moved to Ariana, small, trembling, trying not to cry. "This is not about her," he said firmly. "Everyone sit down. We will address the missing gift now." Chairs shifted. Guests whispered to one another. Mrs. Grayson glared at Ariana like she blamed her for the attention turning elsewhere. Ariana lowered her eyes. Then suddenly Brandon touched her arm. "Stay with me," he whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong." She nodded slowly. The tension in the room finally broke when the violin music resumed quietly, and Mr. Grayson led a few adults to the side to question them. The moment softened. People returned to chatting in low voices. The extreme moment faded for now. Ariana slipped into the hallway to catch her breath. She felt tiny inside that giant mansion. The framed photos on the wall showed the Graysons smiling at award ceremonies, vacations, and charity events. They looked perfect, strong, happy, but inside that party room they didn't feel perfect at all. She found a quiet corner near the staircase and sat down, flipping open her drawing book. Drawing always calmed her. She sketched a balloon from the party, adding stars around it. The pencil moved smoothly in her hand. Footsteps approached. "Are you okay?" Ariana looked up. It was Brandon holding 2 small paper cups of lemonade. She nodded. "A little. I'm sorry she yelled at you," he said, sitting beside her. "She's complicated." Ariana sipped her lemonade. "I didn't think she would be that angry. I only took 1 cupcake." "You deserve 10, Brandon joked softly. "The chef told you to take it." Ariana smiled a little. "You're lucky. You live here. Everything looks like a dream." Brandon looked around the hallway. "It's not always good," he murmured. "People expect too much from us. And my stepmom wants everything perfect, even when it isn't." Ariana studied him. He wasn't like most rich kids she had met before. He listened and he talked like he wanted to understand others. "What about your real mom?" she asked gently. Brandon's hands froze around his cup. "She passed away when I was 6. Ariana's heart sank. "I'm sorry." He nodded. "My dad remarried 2 years later. But things haven't been easy." They sat quietly for a moment. Then Brandon pointed at her sketch. "Can you draw me something?" "What do you want?" He thought for a second. "Something happy. Something people can't break or yell at." Ariana smiled softly. She turned the page and started sketching 2 kids flying kites in the sky. No mansion. No angry stepmother. Just wind and sunshine. Brandon watched amazed. "You're really good." Before she could answer, footsteps echoed from the main hall. Loud ones. Fast ones. Then a scream. A woman shouted from the party room, "Mr. Grayson, come quickly." Brandon and Ariana jumped to their feet. They ran toward the noise with the guests crowding around the dessert table. Mr. Grayson pushed through the group. "What happened?" Mrs. Lee pointed at the table. "The bracelet box," she cried. "It's been opened. It was here. Someone put it back." Everyone gasped again. But the shock wasn't because the box was returned. It was because the bracelet inside, the expensive diamond bracelet, was gone. Only the empty velvet cushion remained. Mrs. Grayson's eyes widened. Someone stole it again? But another guest shook her head. No. Someone was trying to hide the evidence. Then a small voice whispered from behind the crowd. "It wasn't there earlier." Everyone turned. Standing near the table was a little boy, around 8 years old, wearing a red sweater and holding a half-eaten cookie. Ariana recognized him as one of the younger guests. Mr. Grayson stepped forward. "What did you see?" The boy swallowed. I saw someone take the bracelet." Everyone leaned closer. "And I know who it was," he said softly. A loud gasp rippled across the room. Mrs. Grayson stiffened. Brandon held his breath. Ariana's heart beat so hard she thought it would burst. The little boy pointed his small finger toward the middle of the crowd, slowly trembling. And the person he pointed at made the entire room erupt in shock, so loud that even the music stopped again. The room exploded in noise the moment the little boy pointed his finger. Gasps, shouts, and whispers filled every corner of the hall. Mr. Grayson raised his hand to silence everyone. "Quiet," he commanded. Slowly the noise faded. The boy's hand trembled as he pointed again, this time clearer, steadier. He was pointing directly at Mrs. Grayson. A loud cry burst from one of the guests. Several people stepped back. Brandon's eyes widened. Ariana felt her stomach twist. Mrs. Grayson's face went pale for 1 second, just one, but everyone saw it. "You're accusing me," she snapped, stepping forward. "You're a child. You don't know what you saw." The boy clutched his cookie with both hands. I know what I saw," he whispered. You took the bracelet from the box. I saw you open it. The guests erupted again. She was near the gift table earlier, someone whispered. I saw her too, another said. She's always shouting at people, a voice muttered. Mrs. Grayson's nostrils flared. This is insane. I didn't take anything. He probably got confused. Mr. Blake crossed his arms. The fabric matched your dress. That proves nothing, she barked. But her voice was cracking. Mr. Grayson took a slow step toward her. His jaw tightened. Were you at the gift table before the party started? Yes, she said. But, did you touch the gifts? I was checking them, she snapped. I wanted everything to be perfect for Brandon. The little boy shook his head rapidly. No, you opened the box and put something in your purse. A huge gasp flew across the room. Mrs. Grayson stumbled back. You're lying. The boy began to cry softly. I'm not. Mr. Grayson looked at his wife with eyes that no longer trusted her. Empty your purse, he said. Everyone froze. Mrs. Grayson's mouth fell open. You cannot be serious. Empty it, he repeated. Absolutely not. Then you're hiding something. Mrs. Grayson's breath quickened. I will not let a child accuse me of stealing. I'm your wife, Richard. Mr. Grayson's expression didn't change. Right now, you're acting like someone who's guilty. A shock rippled through the guests. Mrs. Grayson looked around the room desperately, her eyes searching for someone, anyone, to defend her. But no one did. Not a single person. Even Brandon stared at her with disappointment, and that hurt her more than anything. This is ridiculous, she whispered, trembling now. You're all turning against me. Suddenly, she grabbed her purse tightly and pushed through the crowd. I'm not staying here to be humiliated, she shouted. Stop, Mr. Grayson called, but she didn't look back. She hurried out of the hall and disappeared into the hallway, heels clicking like thunder. The room stayed frozen, everyone stunned. Mr. Grayson ran a hand over his face. Everyone stay calm. I'll deal with this. He walked quickly after her. The guests began whispering again, louder this time. Brandon stood beside Ariana, his face pale. I can't believe she ran, he said quietly. Ariana hugged her drawing book to her chest. She didn't know what to say. She felt small again. She felt like none of this should be happening, yet somehow the whole disaster started right after Mrs. Grayson yelled at her. Brandon stepped closer. You okay? She nodded weakly, but inside her heart was shaking. The noise faded as Mr. Grayson led the guests to another room to calm everyone down. Ariana slipped away, heading back to the corner near the staircase. She needed air, or maybe just silence. Brandon followed, sitting beside her. I'm sorry, he said again, rubbing the back of his neck. This was supposed to be a birthday party, not a disaster. Ariana stared at the drawing book in her lap. Your stepmom. She hates me. Brandon sighed. She hates anything she can't control. Ariana lifted her eyes. Do you think she took the bracelet? Brandon hesitated. His shoulders sagged. I don't know, but the way she ran. He didn't finish the sentence. Ariana looked around. People keep staring at me. They're not staring because of you, Brandon said. They're staring because of her. Ariana didn't fully believe it, but Brandon's voice was kind enough that she let the words settle in her heart. He reached into his pocket and pulled something out. Here. Ariana blinked. It was a small plastic astronaut figurine, the kind you put on cakes. It fell off the cake earlier, he said. I saved it for you. Ariana smiled a little. Thank you. You're the only good part of this party, Brandon whispered. A blush warmed her cheeks. But before she could answer, Miss Tessa came rushing toward them. Ariana, I've been looking all over for you. Her face was tight with worry. We should leave. Things are getting out of hand. Ariana stood. Okay. Brandon also stood. Wait, you're leaving? She needs to, Miss Tessa said gently. It's not safe here right now. Brandon looked like someone had punched him in the chest. But she didn't do anything wrong. I know, Miss Tessa said. But sometimes innocence doesn't matter when adults start pointing fingers. Ariana felt her eyes sting. I don't want to go yet, she whispered, surprising even herself. Miss Tessa sighed softly. Sweetheart. Brandon stepped closer. Just stay a little longer. Please. Before Miss Tessa could answer, a sudden loud sound echoed through the mansion. Crack. A slam. People shouting. Miss Tessa froze. Brandon grabbed the railing. What was that? A man ran from the hallway into the main hall. Call security. Someone's hurt. Ariana's heart jumped. Guests hurried toward the noise. Ariana stood on her toes to see over the crowd. Then someone shouted, "It's Mr. Grayson." Ariana's breath stopped. Brandon's face went white. Miss Tessa grabbed Ariana's hand tightly. More shouting filled the hall. He collapsed. Get help. He's not moving. The crowd parted, revealing Mr. Grayson lying on the floor near the base of the stairs. His eyes were closed. His hand was still clutching something tightly, something that looked like ripped paper. Mrs. Grayson was nowhere in sight. Gasps swept through the mansion. Brandon let out a trembling breath, then sprinted toward his father. Dad! Dad! Ariana's heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. Miss Tessa pulled her close. People rushed toward the staircase as Brandon knelt next to his father, shaking his shoulder. Dad! Please wake up. His voice cracked in a way Ariana had never heard before. The mansion, once full of music and birthday laughter, now pulsed with panic. Mr. Grayson lay still, his breathing shallow. His hand remained tightly wrapped around the torn piece of paper. The crowd hovered, whispering, pointing, confused and scared. Move back, everyone! A guard shouted. Give him space. Brandon's hands trembled. Dad, please open your eyes, he begged. Ariana felt her own chest tighten. She clutched Miss Tessa's hand as guests backed away slowly. She didn't want to see someone hurt, not because of a party that was supposed to be happy. More guards rushed in. Someone yelled, "Call 911." And a woman pulled out her phone with shaking fingers. Dad! Brandon whispered again, his voice breaking. Suddenly, Mr. Grayson's fingers twitched. Very lightly, but enough for Brandon to gasp. He moved. He moved. One of the guards crouched beside him and checked his pulse. He's alive, the man said. Weak but alive. Relief swept through part of the crowd, but another wave of fear rolled right behind it. Why did he collapse? Was he pushed? Where is Mrs. Grayson? She ran off. I saw her. Brandon heard every word. His face hardened slowly, like he was putting pieces together he didn't want to see. Ariana stepped forward. Brandon, she whispered softly. He didn't look away from his father. I don't understand, he said. He was fine earlier. Two paramedics burst through the door moments later, kneeling beside Mr. Grayson and working quickly. They checked his breathing, his pulse, and lifted him gently onto a stretcher. We're taking him to Lakeview Hospital, one paramedic said. Family can follow us. Brandon grabbed his father's hand before they wheeled him away. I'm coming with you, he said firmly. But the paramedics shook their heads. You need your guardian with you. Where is your stepmother? The woman asked. Brandon swallowed hard. She's gone. Those two words made the entire room shift. Gasps, shock, silence. Miss Tessa gently pulled Ariana back as the stretcher rolled away. The front doors swung open. Sirens echoed outside. Guests stared at Brandon with sympathy and confusion. He looked alone in the biggest house Ariana had ever seen. When the ambulance finally left, the energy in the mansion dropped to a heavy, uncomfortable quiet. All the decorations, the balloons, the cake, it all looked wrong now. A birthday party with no joy left in it. The guests slowly gathered their things and whispered their goodbyes. Some tried to speak to Brandon, but he didn't answer. He stood by the staircase with folded arms, staring at the torn paper the paramedic had taken from his father's hand but given to him. Ariana watched him from a distance. Her heart ached for him. He had lost control of everything in a single day. The party, his stepmother's trust, and now his father's health. Miss Tessa touched her shoulder. We should go, sweetheart. Ariana didn't move. She kept looking at Brandon. He noticed. And for the first time since his father collapsed, he walked over. Are you leaving too? He asked quietly. Ariana nodded. My aunt says we have to. Brandon looked down. I wish you could stay, just until things make sense. Ariana hesitated. She felt pulled between sadness and fear. Everything had gotten so big, so messy. But something in her chest told her that Brandon didn't need a crowd. He needed one friend. Still, she whispered, "I'm sorry." His shoulders fell. Miss Tessa tried to speak softly. "Brandon, she's just a child. This situation is too complicated." He looked up sharply. "Ariana didn't cause this." "I didn't say she did," Miss Tessa replied. "But you need adults now. Not her." Brandon opened his mouth to argue but closed it again. He knew she was right. He knew Ariana couldn't solve the chaos around him. But still, losing the only person who stood by him today felt like losing the ground under his feet. He forced a small smile. "Thank you for being my friend." Ariana nodded. "You're welcome." They didn't hug. They just stood there, wishing things were different but not knowing how to fix them. Miss Tessa took Ariana's hand again. "Come on." As they walked toward the exit, Ariana glanced back one last time. Brandon stood alone by the staircase, clutching the torn paper. And Ariana wondered what was written on it. The car ride home was quiet. Ariana watched trees blur past the window, thinking about the yelling, the missing bracelet, the way Mrs. Grayson ran away, and Mr. Grayson collapsing. Everything felt bigger than her, like a storm she got caught in without trying. Miss Tessa finally broke the silence. "Listen, sweetheart. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Big mistakes. And sometimes kids get stuck in the middle." Ariana nodded slowly. "Was it my fault?" "Never," Miss Tessa said firmly. "You didn't cause any of this. Grown-ups need to take responsibility for their own choices." Ariana held her drawing book close. Brandon looked so sad. "He lost a lot today," Miss Tessa whispered. Ariana stared at her drawing of the kites, the one she made for Brandon. She wished she had given it to him before she left. When they reached home, Ariana went straight to her room. She sat on her bed, hugging her drawing book and thinking about the mansion. The gold dress, the torn fabric, the missing bracelet, Mr. Grayson's collapse, and Mrs. Grayson's disappearance. Something about it didn't feel right. She flipped open her drawing book and saw the sketch of the two kids flying kites. She touched the page lightly. "I hope he's okay," she whispered. Back in the mansion, Brandon sat alone at the bottom of the staircase, the torn paper still in his hand. He unfolded it slowly. It wasn't paper. It was an envelope. His eyes narrowed. His father was holding this when he collapsed. Brandon turned it over, and his breath caught. Written on the envelope in messy handwriting were the words, "I know who took the bracelet." Brandon's heart thudded. Inside the envelope was a small note. He opened it carefully, slowly. But before he could read the first line, the front doors of the mansion burst open with a loud crash. A woman screamed. Brandon jumped to his feet. Ariana wasn't there to see it. Miss Tessa wasn't there. Only Brandon saw the figure rushing into the mansion, covered in dirt, breathing hard, eyes full of fear. It was Mrs. Grayson, and she screamed words that shook the entire mansion. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring and emotional stories like this. Mrs. Grayson stumbled into the mansion like someone running from a monster. Her hair was wild, her dress was torn, and one of her heels was missing. She clutched the doorframe as if she might fall any second. "Brandon!" she cried again, her voice breaking. "You're in danger. You need to leave this house right now." Brandon froze, the envelope still in his hand. "What do you mean I'm in danger? What happened?" Mrs. Grayson's chest rose and fell quickly. She looked around the empty hall like she expected someone to jump out. "Lock the doors," she yelled at the guards. "Lock everything." The guards hesitated, confused. One of them asked, "Ma'am, where have you been? Everyone is looking for you." "Just do it," she screamed. The doors slammed shut. Locks clicked loudly. Brandon stepped forward, fear stretching across his face. "Where did you go?" Brandon asked. "Why did you run away? And why are you saying I'm in danger?" Mrs. Grayson's eyes landed on Brandon, and for a moment, her harsh expression softened. She rushed toward him and grabbed his shoulders. "I didn't steal the bracelet," she said breathlessly. "I swear I didn't. But someone wanted me to look guilty." Brandon blinked. "Who?" She looked toward the staircase, then the windows, then the hallways, like she didn't trust any direction. I can't say yet, she whispered. Not until I'm sure. But your dad collapsed because he found something. And whoever planted that bracelet, whoever set this up, they won't stop. Brandon's hand shook. You mean someone tried to hurt Dad? Mrs. Grayson swallowed hard. And they might try to hurt you too. A cold silence struck the air. Brandon stepped back. Why me? Because you were close to the gift table, she said urgently. Because you saw things. Because you're your father's son. Her voice cracked on the last word. Brandon felt something twist sharply inside him. Where were you? He asked again, this time with hurt in his voice. Why did you run away when everyone asked about the bracelet? Mrs. Grayson's eyes flickered with shame. Because I panicked, she whispered. Everyone pointed at me. That little boy accused me. And when your father told me to empty my purse, I knew I was being set up. I had to get out before something worse happened. Brandon stared at her. He wanted to believe her. But everything felt scrambled. The guards exchanged glances, unsure whether to trust anything she was saying. Ma'am, one said. What exactly are you running from? Mrs. Grayson wiped tears from her cheeks with the back of her hand. I can't tell you, she said. Not yet. But someone inside this house is not who they pretend to be. The guard stiffened. Brandon's heart pounded harder. Mrs. Grayson took a step toward him and lowered her voice. Brandon, you must stay with me. You're safer if you're with me. But Brandon didn't move closer. He remembered her yelling at Ariana. He remembered her running away instead of helping when Mr. Grayson collapsed. He remembered her blaming everyone but herself. And yet, something about her eyes right now, wide, frightened, desperate, felt real. I don't know if I can trust you, he said quietly. Mrs. Grayson's face shattered. She reached for him, but this time he stepped back. No, he whispered. Not until you tell me everything. She opened her mouth to speak, but suddenly the lights flickered. All at once, the entire mansion fell into a strange dim glow. The guards automatically reached for their radios. What's going on? Power shouldn't be failing. Check the basement. The lights flickered again, then steadied. Mrs. Grayson whispered, It's starting. Brandon felt a cold chill run down his back. What's starting? But before she could answer, one of the guards shouted from the front window. Someone's outside. Everyone turned. A dark figure stood at the edge of the driveway, still silent, watching the mansion. Brandon's stomach dropped. Mrs. Grayson covered her mouth with her hands. No. The figure didn't move. Didn't walk. Didn't even raise a hand. Just stared. One guard rushed to the window. Hey, you can't be here, he yelled. But the figure didn't react. Another guard stepped closer. Should I go out there? Mrs. Grayson grabbed his arm. Don't go near them. The guard frowned. Why not? Because that's the person who followed me here, she whispered. I saw them outside the restaurant, then behind the gas station. Then they chased me when I left the mansion. Brandon stared at her. Someone chased you? Mrs. Grayson nodded, shaking. And now they're here. Brandon's breath grew shallow. He held the envelope tighter. What do they want? He asked. Mrs. Grayson looked right into his eyes. They want the truth your father discovered. Brandon froze. The guards radioed backup. Boots echoed. Tension rose thick and heavy. But suddenly the figure outside slowly lifted a hand. Not waving. Not pointing. Holding something. A small box. A shining box. Brandon's eyes widened. That's the bracelet box. The exact same one that was found empty. Mrs. Grayson grabbed Brandon's hand. Do you understand now? They're trying to make us all look guilty. The figure outside placed the bracelet box on the ground, then kicked it toward the mansion door. The guards backed away. Mrs. Grayson let out a quiet sob. Brandon swallowed. Why would they bring it back? Mrs. Grayson said, trembling. Because they want you to open it. The mansion went silent. Brandon stepped forward slowly. Every guard watched him. He crouched near the door and picked up the little box. It felt heavier than he expected, as if something new was inside. He opened it with shaking hands. Inside wasn't the bracelet. Inside was a folded note. He unfolded it, and his breath stopped. Mrs. Grayson leaned over his shoulder. The note read, "The next person who gets in my way will disappear." Below it, in much smaller letters, starting with the girl who took the cupcake. Brandon's heart slammed against his ribs. The girl who took the cupcake. There was only one person that could mean Ariana. Brandon's voice cracked. "They're going after Ariana." Mrs. Grayson gasped. "We have to warn her." But before anyone could move, before anyone could speak, the lights in the mansion snapped off completely. Darkness swallowed the entire house. Someone screamed. Glass shattered upstairs, and the front door lock clicked. All by itself. Darkness swallowed the mansion. The music had stopped. The balloons looked like dark shapes in the corners. Guests whispered and stumbled. Someone cried out. The front door lock clicked by itself. Everyone froze. "Where is Ariana?" Mrs. Grayson shouted, her voice breaking the quiet. "Where did she go?" Brandon spun around, heart racing. He hugged the envelope close to his chest, the one that had said who took the bracelet. He thought of the note that threatened the girl who took the cupcake. His mouth went dry. "Dad!" Someone called from the main hall. "The lights went out. We can't see." Miss Tessa grabbed Ariana's small hand before she could run. Ariana's breath came fast. Her drawing book felt heavy in her arms. She looked up into Brandon's eyes. He looked scared, but he tried to be steady. "Stay with me," Brandon told Ariana softly. "I won't let anything happen to you." Mrs. Grayson stood in the dark near the staircase. Her hair was messy. Her dress was torn. She looked as if she had run a long way. For a moment she spoke to no one but to herself. "They're trying to scare us. They want to make us look bad." A guest bumped into a table and a plate crashed to the floor. People shouted. Guards pulled out flashlights and shone them into the black. Light moved across faces, faces full of worry. Brandon swallowed. "We have to find the girl who pointed earlier," he said. "The boy who said he saw her. Maybe he can help. He's brave." A guard called back. "We're checking every room. Stay together." Miss Tessa tightened her hold on Ariana's hand. "We should go to the library," she whispered. "It's safer there. Fewer doors. More people can watch." They moved carefully, following other guests. The hall smelled like cake and flowers. It felt wrong to walk in a house that had been full of laughter just minutes ago. In the library, people huddled around candles and cell phone lights. The small boy who had pointed at Mrs. Grayson sat with his mother, trembling. Mr. Blake talked quietly with some guests. Mrs. Lee, the caterer, stood with her apron dirty and her face pale. Brandon stayed near the door. He folded the envelope with the message and looked at the handwriting again. Felt like a puzzle piece that hurt. Ariana drew with the flashlight on her sketch. Drawing calmed her. She drew the kite picture and added a small sun. Brandon watched her hand move. He remembered the way she had smiled earlier, how she had not bragged or tried to be someone else. She was gentle. A guard came back into the room and said, "We checked the outside. There was someone at the driveway, holding the bracelet box. They left when we shone lights. We think they wanted us to open the box and read the note." Brandon's eyes tightened. "They wanted to scare us. They're not done." Mrs. Grayson sat on a sofa, breathing hard. For a moment she looked like a woman who had lost everything. Then she stood and walked slowly to Brandon. "Brandon," she said, her voice small, "you must be careful. Whoever did this will come after anyone who can tell the truth." Brandon did not answer right away. He remembered how she had yelled at Ariana earlier. He remembered how she had run away when his father collapsed. But the fear in her voice now sounded real. "Ariana didn't do anything wrong," he said quietly. Mrs. Grayson nodded. "I know. I was wrong. I'm sorry." Brandon kept his face calm, but his eyes were cold. "We need to find who wrote that note." Mr. Grayson's voice came from the hallway. He sounded weak but alive. "Make sure the children are safe," he said. The paramedic stood nearby. Mr. Grayson sat supported on a chair. He held the torn piece of paper in one hand and looked at the people in the room with tired eyes. The old woman stood near the fireplace. She was the one who had appeared earlier at the dessert table when the torn gold fabric was found. Her hair was white and her hands were steady. She did not say much, but everyone sensed something different about her, like she knew things that had been hidden. Brandon walked to the woman slowly. "Who are you?" he asked. She looked at him with kind eyes. "Someone who has watched too many secrets hide," she said softly. "I came because I could not stay away." "Did you see someone take the bracelet?" Mr. Blake asked, hopeful. The old woman shook her head. "No, but I saw the moment before it all started. I saw someone slip a paper into Mr. Grayson's hand. He found it. That paper said the same thing as the note in the box. He read it and then he collapsed." A silence fell like a blanket. Children held their breaths. Miss Tessa rubbed Ariana's arms. "Who put the paper in his hand?" she whispered. The old woman closed her eyes briefly. "I don't know the name. I only know the hand that left it looked familiar. It was the hand of someone who had been here many times." Brandon clenched his fists. He looked at the faces of the guests. He thought of the way his stepmother had acted and the way she had run. He thought of his father's shaky eyes. He thought of the boy who had pointed. "Who would want to frighten a family like this?" a guest asked. "Someone who wants to hide something," Mr. Blake answered. "Someone who wants to distract us from the truth." A young guard opened the library door a crack and peered out, then shut it softly. "All clear for now," he whispered. People in the room began to breathe a little easier. The candles glowed small and bright. For a moment the danger seemed far away. Then far down the hallway, a sound broke the quiet. Started small and then grew. A shout. Crash. The sound of a window breaking. Everyone stood up like a single body. The old woman's face changed. Her calm folded and something sharp came into her eyes. "It has begun," she said. Brandon heard his name from the doorway. Miss Tessa pulled Ariana behind her. Mr. Grayson tried to stand, but the paramedic steadied him. Outside, a guard shouted, "Someone's at the back door. They're trying to force it." Brandon's heart hammered. He held Ariana's hand tight. "No one leaves," he said. "No one goes alone." He looked at Mrs. Grayson. She looked horrified and sorry and afraid. For a moment she and Brandon were both very small in that big room, facing a secret they did not yet understand. The old woman folded her hands and said, "If they are trying to scare you, they will make mistakes. Watch the small things. Watch who is too quiet. Watch who seems too eager to help." Ariana squeezed Brandon's fingers and whispered, "I'm scared." Brandon knelt and met her eyes. "Me too," he said honestly. "But we'll be okay. We'll stick together." Just then a terrible sound echoed through the house. A scream from the kitchen, then another from the guest hallway, then the loud thud of something heavy falling. The guests froze. The old woman looked at Mr. Grayson and then at the darkness. Her voice was small but steady. "It has begun," she repeated, "and we must not let the truth be buried." The mansion filled with hurried footsteps. The guards rushed out. Brandon stood up and pulled Ariana with him. He felt small, but he felt brave too. Outside, the night air was cold and loud. Inside, the house that had held a happy party was now full of questions, and the search for answers had turned into a race against time. The last thing Ariana remembered before they ran toward the noise was the torn piece of paper in Brandon's pocket and the old woman's words, "Watch who is too quiet." If you enjoy this story, subscribe to the channel for more emotional and inspiring stories.